Hi, it's Dr. Saira, and I wanted to chat with you today about a question that came up in our expansion project community. So, this is an online community for people who are interested in exploring consciousness and personal growth. And every Thursday, I do this little teaching thing called Ask Dr. Saira. And a question came up today, and I thought it was really, really interesting. And maybe other people have this question as well. So I thought I would bring it here for those following the videos around, so it might be helpful for you too. So here we go. So the question was, how do we, so you're kind of going through this personal growth and this personal evolution, how do we acknowledge on one hand that people are doing the best they can, for example, our parents, but on the other hand, that some things happened maybe in our past that hurt, right? So people are doing the best they can with what they know, but also I have some wounding from my childhood. How do I hold that at the same time? Without doing this like spiritual bypass where it's like, oh, everybody's just trying to do their best and it's okay and be nice. And like, how do we actually navigate that? And so what we talked about was, we actually went through an exercise. And in this exercise, we had people kind of visualize or imagine their parents as they are, with all the personality stuff and all the stuff, and then have all of that drop away. And so what's left really is the essence. What's left is the spirit, the love, the best intentions. It's like who we really are and who we would really have been if there wasn't wounding in our own histories or in their own histories. And so we kind of did this visualization where, they're just left as like energy beings. That's it. And then starting to build a relationship with that, right? With that element of who they are. And the second part of this, so that's the first part, is to kind of let go of the past and the things that happened and the beliefs and the stories that I had attached to that, to start to kind of acknowledge that it happened, but also be willing to see something else in it. And then the next part is soothing that wounded part, right? That part, that 9-year-old that never got whatever they needed from whoever. And so I think both of those things are important, to be able to see that and acknowledge that people are doing the best they can with what they have, and not just from like a personality perspective or an ego perspective, but actually as spiritual beings, right? They're walking the path with the information that they have, with the knowledge that they have, with the supports or lack of supports that they're experiencing, that, parents and other caregivers are doing what they can with what they've got. But also there is impact, right? There's impact of that survival brain parenting. It has an impact on the next generation. And it's not to blame or shame anyone. It's to acknowledge that, yes, these things happen. Sometimes what people do is they do this kind of Pollyanna thing around their childhood, where, oh, I had a wonderful childhood. My parents were so supportive and whatever. And you dig a little bit deeper and it's like, but this and this and this and this, right? And they have these examples of times where they didn't feel seen, or they actually had some really terrible things happen, but they're just like, it's glossed over because like, we don't want to think about the bad things. And I think that's one of the mistakes in the like spiritual growth communities, is not looking at the past at all and saying, well, that's past in the past and leave it in the past. And the problem with that is that those things seep forward, right? Because those experiences that we had when we were little, they actually built our belief system. And so if we're trying to get into a new belief system and we're trying to dismantle and create something new, we're going to have to acknowledge that some things happen. And it's not about understanding intellectually every single trauma, right? Because I know that there's schools of thought where that's encouraged, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's more like as a package deal, some bad things happened. Difficult things happened as a package deal. And there was the adults that were involved, and then there was, what was created was this wounded child. And that wounded child is also not the truth of who we are, right? It's an aspect of ourselves. It's something that we might have carried forward, but it's also not the truth of who we are. And so part of the work in healing is acknowledging the wound and also making space for that child to be healed, right? Making space for that old story to be transformed into a new story. And so how we tell our narrative starts to change. One of the first experiences I had of this was when it occurred to me that my parents were actually way better off as individuals, not in the marriage with each other. So my parents separated when I was really about 10 years old. And for many, many, many years, it was like, oh, what if my dad had never left? And what if my parents had stayed together? And I had this kind of idyllic version in my mind of what it would be like to not be the child of divorced parents. It was only in my 20s when I actually saw them interact, and like it's like a light bulb moment that I had where I was like, oh yeah, that would have been terrible for them to like actually stay together, because I could see how incompatible they were. I mean, they got along great when they got along great, but when they didn't, it was fireworks, right? And not in a good way. So that moment of like, oh, and even this thing that I thought of as bad that happened to me, there was some value in it. There was some beauty in even that bad thing. And not to say it didn't hurt, it wasn't difficult, but I'm not going to tell that story anymore if I wish my parents had never separated, right? It's like, actually, maybe it was a good thing that they did. And this is just my personal example. This might not fit for your story, but starting to look at those narratives, right, that we've had about our childhood or our past experiences and how they've impacted us. And what if we were to reframe them? And so this takes a couple of steps. The first is to actually see the other as not the villain, not the bad guy, right? So to kind of let that person off the hook in some way, and seeing kind of beyond the actions, not to condone what they did, but to see some, like, we have the privilege of being able to look back in time and say, oh, if this hadn't happened, this wouldn't happen, this wouldn't happen, this wouldn't, I wouldn't be here, right? So in that sense. And then the second part is to heal that inner wound that happened within us. So that's the thoughts, and that's kind of the conversation that we had in the community today. And it's not enough, again, to just have insight and awareness and knowing and knowledge about what happens to me. But the next step is, can I transform that? Can I actually tune in internally of what it would feel like if I was my aligned self, and keep moving towards that? Keep moving towards that. I want to read you something as we close here from this book that I'm reading called The Pivot Year. So it's 1 page a day kind of thought. So this is the thought for today, and I want to share that with you. In everything you choose, you must first ask yourself, but what will this do to my soul? Will it bring me closer to a heavenly state of being, or anchor me in the ache of this world? Will it make me more of the person I was meant to be, or will it distract me from true work? Will it pay the bills but bankrupt my being? Will it impress others but disappoint the child inside me waiting to see what I would do with my freedom? Will I arrive at the end of my life proud that I did this? Will I do this now, or will I wait until I'm forced to make the decision I already know is right today? Will I spare myself the suffering? Will I have the courage? So those are your thoughts from the Pivot Year, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Bye.